Hey all, good morning. Am I audible? I just want to confirm. Just want to check the connectivities.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll start in sharp 10, or maybe we can wait. Now it's sharp 10 minute my clock. So can we wait 2 more minutes and see anybody's joining in another 2 minutes, and then we can start. Okay, can we start? Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm John from Obscura Zone. We have our former team here. Let me introduce them. Mr. Manu, Sam, Shan, and myself, John. Okay, today we are going to talk about automation, exactly how automation takes place in Agile environment. So, welcome to our session. Our topic for today is test automation in Agile world. Now tell me, how many of you are working in Agile environment? Can you please raise your hand in the Zoom, those who are working in Agile? Since it's not that practical to unmute and take inputs from everybody. So can you please raise your hand in Zoom, those who are working in Agile? Yeah, I could see around 11 responses. Yeah, it's 50. Yeah, okay. Okay, I assume majority of us might work in Agile projects or the projects handled by Agile Scrum or Kanban or SAFe, even Extreme Programming or any other similar Agile frameworks. So I'm going forward with the assumption that we have some exposure in Agile. As you're working in Agile, we are we would be working mostly in 2 weeks or monthly or even weekly sprint releases. So we are expected to complete a regression testing before each and every release or each and every sprint, right? So in that case, we can handle our regression testing using automation. So the point which I'm trying to envision is definitely there's a need of automation testing in almost all the long-term projects. Am I right? Because we are all working in small sprint releases. So that is the background here. Are we good? So the background is ready. In automation, there are different types of frameworks that are available in our industry. Somebody use data-driven framework, others are using keyword-driven framework, some others even adopted a hybrid approach. And a very few are working with behavior-driven approach, popularly known as BDD, behavior-driven developments. So today we are going to talk more about BDD and related stuffs. Are we good? Now I could see more than 100 candidates join today with different levels of experience. So we need to make sure all the experience level gathered here should be get benefited. So our plan would be to start from a basic level of automation, like how we are going to automate a web page with Selenium Java. Imagine I'm part of a project which is currently running manual testing, and I have a little knowledge in automation. So in this situation, how I'm going to start automation in my project? Definitely, I would start automate some sample test cases from thinking from a basic Selenium with Java. Once I identify Selenium Java is a suitable automation tool for my project, then I try to automate the same test cases with a suitable automation framework. That is, we are moving into the intermediate level by creating a well-built automation framework, preferably a BDD with Cucumber today, with all the possible scalabilities. Once our framework is ready, we need to handle the code in a structured way. Basically, we need to check in and check out the code whenever we want and wherever we want. Let's use an industry-leading code repository here. We would suggest GitHub. Okay, now it's the time to think in an expert level, that is into CI/CD pipeline, continuous integration and continuous delivery, because we have the code ready in our code. I mean, our scripts are ready in our repository. So what's the next level? What's the next level you can think about when the code is ready in our repository in an expert level? Any guesses? Yes. We can think about running the automation script in a common machine where we can make our scripts and environment ready and run from a common machine. So what is the first thing which will be coming into your mind when you are thinking about a common machine where we can host our environment and run our script? Is it a remote machine or a virtual machine? Which one? Or both? Okay. Where we can host our environment and scripts. It should be a virtual machine or a VM, right? Definitely. So we really want to avoid that one machine dependency. In that case, we would suggest you to use the Docker. I would repeat the word Docker, where we can set up our automation environment and take the latest code from the repository and start running it. So there is no more machine or environment dependencies in automation. And that should be our goal for today. Are we clear with our goal? Are we? Can we move ahead? Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. Before jumping into our session, please let me set the expectations first. We would target sharp 2-hour session. In order to keep the time frame and avoid connectivity glitches, we are going to play an existing code today because we really don't want you to keep waiting while typing the code. So we'll be playing the code today. Agreed? Okay, we would start the session with a hands-on automation session from a basic web page with Selenium Java. After that, all the participants will be in mute. Meantime, please don't hesitate to raise your hand whenever you need any help or you stuck somewhere. Towards the end of the session, we can have an interactive Q&A session. There you can type all your questions in the chat window and we would love to answer all those definitely. So let me consolidate once again. We'll start from a basic level of automation, a web page, then we will move into Cucumber, and then we will demonstrate a professional BDD framework. After that, we will move into CI/CD using Jenkins and GitLab, and we will mostly end up in Docker with cloud execution and GitLab. So in this screen, where do you find yourself? Are you a beginner or intermediate, or are you really an expert? Please text me your input. Where do you find yourself in the start? Okay, 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 okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. Awesome response. Awesome. Okay, okay. Let's start the automation with a web page. One of the biggest challenge of a manual test engineer asks himself while transitioning into an automation test engineer is that how much knowledge I need to acquire in any programming language to survive in our automation industry, isn't it? Should we really need to understand the entire concept of coding or basic knowledge in programming to crack at least some automation interviews? These are the few questions I faced in the initial days of my automation testing career. Before answering all these questions, let's see what is the test case that we can prepare for a simple login page. The first step would be launch a browser and enter the URL, then enter the username and password and definitely the submit button click. Then the user will be navigating to the login page. Then we'll have to verify the title of the page. So these tests will definitely cover at least a happy path of the login, right? At least a happy path. Will you agree with me? So let's make a try now. Okay, Manu will take you through the web page automation. Hey Manu, it's over to you, all yours.
Hey, thanks, buddy. So good morning, all. We will come to the basic Selenium, Cucumber, all these stuffs a little later, okay? Let's just imagine that we have joined a new company or maybe a new team, okay? So just tell me, what will be that first thing that you're gonna ask as you join the project? I mean, maybe you guys can use the chat window, please. I mean, what will be that thing which you love to get as you start working in a project? Anyone? I don't see any response. All right. Oh, somebody said login, somebody said URL. Well, if you ask me, I'll say that I would love to get a test case, not a BRD or a project document or anything. So the beauty of the any test case is that it will help you to understand the end-to-end application, right? Yeah, you can understand how, I mean, even in a test case, you will have the username, password, URL, and you could just navigate and play around the website as you get the test case, right? You will have everything over there. What's the actual, what's the expected, what do you need, what do you don't need, you will have everything. So you will understand almost every business scenarios and almost like every critical business functionality or which your customer wants. Now, have you ever imagined if you could able to automate the same manual test case itself? I mean, you have that test case, right? Just imagine if you're able to automate the same manual test case, which means someone who really don't have much knowledge about automation itself can automate it, right? So you can change your username, you can even change the environment. So maybe you can change from development region to QA region, or maybe to the production. So you don't need to vary it. So you have the same document as test case and the same document as a automation script, right? So that's the beauty of any Cucumber framework. Okay, so let's start with a basic automation. So prior to that, I will just share two files. So I will share you a Maven dependency file. I think we have already shared it. Let me just try to get it. Okay, 1 second, guys. So I hope most of you have done the basic JDK installation, right? So right now I have just shared the Maven dependency, and I will also share the basic Selenium Grid. So those who are in their laptops can just go through this and do the installation part, all right? Okay, so let me just share my screen right now. So I hope everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, so this is the basic form XML. So where we include all the dependencies. So in the video which we shared, we have already mentioned whatever dependencies that need to be added, right? So just have a quick look over here. I have shared the same thing. So if you're trying to install this right now, maybe it will take a little bit time. So as you could see the word dependency, so that means our project will be totally dependent on these jar files, okay? So let's move on. So I hope you guys know how to attach this dependency, and you might have created a simple Maven project just like this. Let's move into this login test page. Now tell me, how many of you have automated this kind of a simple login scenario at least once? Believe me, when years back when I started automation, this was the only program that gave me confidence that yes, even I will be able to automate. I mean, I really didn't have that much knowledge in coding, but somehow I copied some these code from some website. I just pasted it on, and man, I mean, this ran, you know. I mean, the moment when we see the browser launched for the first time, trust me, that's the most happiest moment. But the fact is that we might not be knowing what's written inside it. So if you just look into it, you know that we have given a URL over here, and we have also given username, password, etc. So I will try to take you guys a little more into this programming stuff. I mean, I cannot take that deeply, but a little bit. So the first thing I created was a class, right? I mean, I just created a class login test. And the second thing is WebDriver. So I have instantiated it. So WebDriver is the Selenium interface. So can you guys tell me what an interface is all about? I mean, many times when a manual tester or someone starts to automate, the biggest question that comes to their mind is, how much should I learn Java, or how much should I learn programming knowledge? Will I be able to do that? Because I'm from a non-CS background. I am not really that good in logic and all those things. Guys, it's like the more you learn, the more it will be, your life will become easy. You will get all the code, almost everything from the Google. You just need to copy it and you need to paste it. But the thing is, you need to understand where to paste it. And there comes your programming knowledge use. Okay. So WebDriver is an interface. So this WebDriver helps to communicate with our browser. Okay. We'll come to the line number 19. So WebDriver manager. So this helps to download the binary files that required to up your browsers. Like, so if here I have given .chrome driver, so which means I need to launch my Chrome driver browser. All right. If you want to launch maybe an IE, then you have to type in IE driver. Okay. And then you have the new Chrome driver. That's a class. We have created an object of this. So the most common Java code which any automation tester will say is WebDriver driver is equal to new Chrome driver. So WebDriver is an interface and Chrome driver is a class. So if you want to launch your IE driver, then the code will change to WebDriver driver is equal to new IE driver. So it all depends. I mean, we have the flexibility, which code, which browser you want to launch, and accordingly you can change the browser over here. And the next line is, you could understand it, right? I mean, it's mentioned like driver.manage.window.maximize. So the moment any browser has been launched, we will just maximize it. Okay. The next is the command .get. This is very self-explanatory, right? I mean, seeing all these codes, sometimes even when we don't have that much knowledge, we get some kind of confidence. So .get, what will it do is like, I mean, it will launch the browser and it will enter the URL and comes to that login page. So I have just classified these 4 lines of code as the precondition to launch the browser. So even when we have any manual test case, we do write a precondition, right? I mean, these are the things that need to be done before executing a manual test case. Same way, it's very simple. We have just divided the first portion as the precondition. Now comes the browser action. So if you see over here, driver is an object and it can only communicate directly to the browser. So we have multiple driver commands, like, I mean, one is get, then another is get title. So I have used that in the line number 31. So what it will do is like, it will fetch the title from that current browser. So driver object can interact directly to the browser, but there is a catch. It's not only the browser whom we need to handle. We need to enter into the DOM structure of that browser, right? So where we have the username field, we have the password field or radio button, checkbox, you name it, you have all these things. So in order to interact with that, we need to use another interface, namely web element. So with the help of this driver object using find element, I will show you how I took this this locator. So using this locator, by is another class, and using this ID, I will fetch the locator, and this method returns me something of type web element. Okay, I hope it's clear. Web element username is equal to driver.find element by.id. So instead of ID, you could use XPath, link text, class name, CSS selector. You have around 8. So you could customize it and use accordingly. The widely used will be ID, class name, and XPath. Okay, now you have the web element. So now you have located that element. And what's the next thing? So just imagine you open this browser. Now your cursor is on the username field. That's the only action. I mean, I'm just trying to help out the beginners. Okay, I mean, pardon me, the experts and intermediate people. All right. So line number 25 does that. And what does line number 26 do? Send keys is a method where it will transfer this value into that text field. Okay, so username dot send key. So in that username text field, this value will be entered, Vinod. And the same thing happened for the password. So just for a change, I have used class name in line number 29, and we could see a method dot click. Okay, so what it will do is like it will click over that button. So if you ask me, this is one kind of abstraction. I mean, you don't know what happens inside this method, but you know one thing: if you use this method, that button will get clicked. Okay, so that's a kind of abstraction. Now line number 30, it's not highly recommendable because we shouldn't use the thread. But as a beginner, I just want to use the same stuff itself. So what happens is like you have entered the username, you have entered the password, and you have clicked the submit button, right? But this program doesn't know that whether the page has been loaded completely or not. So maybe you need, after logging in, you might need to click add new or maybe register myself or something like that. But you need to give a little bit time to launch the browser, right? So this thread.sleep, what it will do is like, I mean, it will wait till the browser has been launched. I mean, even if it's launched or not, it will wait for 1 minute. Okay. And if you come to the line number 33, as I told, it's with the help of this driver object, the get title method will fetch you the title of that browser and you get it. So the action is over, precondition is done, action is done, and the last part is verification or assertion. So if you compare this part with your test case, I can say that this is the part where we do actual versus expected comparison. Okay, the first thing will be, I mean, launch the browser, then you enter username, password, and click submit button. Action is done. Now the verification part. And we have used the JUnit for this verification. So we have multiple testing frameworks like JUnit, TestNG. So for this time, we have used the JUnit. And in the JUnit, we have a class named assert. All right. And this class have few static methods like assert equals, assert not equals, assert true. Okay. These are the static methods. So those who have revisited a little bit of Java, they know, I mean, class name dot method, that's how we call a static method, and object dot method, that's how we call an instance method, right? So with the help of this assert equals method, we are comparing it. So I know the expected result. That's how we actually do it, right? The verification. In the test case, we'll write, okay, ERP/dashboard should be there as the title, and you just compare it looking into the browser. Okay, that's the actual and expected. So the same thing happens here. So if both comparison works, you can say, I mean, just for the sake of imagination, maybe you can say, I mean, it compares, and if it's equal, then this test case is passed. If not, the test case is failed. All right, and you could see two more annotations I have given on top of two methods. So on top of verify login, I have given @test, and on top of close browser, I have given @after. So these are the annotations that's given by the JUnit. Okay, so if you create a simple Java class, a very simple Java class, and you could see the entry point of a very simple Java class is like public static void main, right? You write n number of methods, but you should definitely write a public static void main. True. That's the entry point, and from there it navigates. Then you create the object, and with the help of that object, you traverse across the program. So that's why Java is called an object-oriented programming language. So if you look over here, you don't have a public static void main. Rather, for these testing classes or TestNG or JUnit class, the entry point will be @test. So what JVM looks for is like, it will check for a method which have the annotation @test. There it goes. So as you run it, maybe let's try to run it. I've been talking a little long. So the moment it runs, what happens is it will come inside the verify login method, and it will execute the preconditions to launch the browser. Username, password will be entered, and finally assertion. So after @test will be completed, and then @after will be executed. So some kind of couplings happen behind it. All right, so let's try to run this as a JUnit test. Annotations can be slightly different for TestNG, and so I mean, basically the assertion is the same thing. Even for the TestNG, you have this assert equals, and for JUnit also it's the same thing. All right. So now the browser is launching. So if you look over the top, you could see it. I mean, Chrome is being controlled by automated test software. Okay. I hope you guys might be trying a little bit in your own system. If I go a little fast, I mean, anytime you could watch the same video in this YouTube channel. Okay. So the test has been completed, and you could see it's been green. Now let's try to inspect it. So I told you earlier how I gave that ID locators and all those things, right? So let's go to Chrome, and I will launch the browser and let's try to inspect it. In the meantime, you should try to do this in your laptop. I mean, if you're logged in your laptop, and put a chat in the Zoom, someone among us will definitely try to help you guys if you find anywhere difficulty. So what's the first thing that need to be done? Click over here, right click. So this is the line which happens the send key. So inspect, okay, and you will see the DOM structure. There you go. So input type is equal to text and ID is equal to login form underscore hyphen username. You just need to copy it and paste it after by.id part. Yeah, that's how that username field has been pinpointed or selected. So similarly for the password, right click, inspect. This time if you see input type is equal to password and then comes ID is equal to login form hyphen password. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. So I have located both and now I'll just pass the value using the send keys method. Okay, this method comes under the web element interface. So web element interface have multiple methods too, like selected, is displayed. So guess around say 16 methods are there which you need to learn. Now we'll check the login button. So this time I take the class. So button type is equal to submit and I took the class value. Guys, there are more things over here. I mean, you have partial link text, XPath, and XPath itself is really complicated, which will really take little more time to learn. But just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just doing this right away. So I hope we are good at this point, right? Now, let's try to convert this into a simple Cucumber file. So this is called, I just created a features folder. Okay, you just right click on the project and create a commit feature. Now we'll create a feature file. So we'll just create, so make sure when you create the file, the extension should be dot feature. Okay, that should be very clear. It should be dot feature. There it goes. This is our feature file. I guess many had tried, many might have tried creating this, right? I mean, few were asking for I mean, the dependencies and all those things. So this is the heart of Cucumber. Okay, even if we don't install the plugin, definitely we can run the Cucumber test, but this makes our life much easier. So this is very much self-explanatory, guys. I mean, if you look, you have all these as the keyword, and that hash means comment. So the first keyword is feature. So in the feature, you list out the scenario. Then so it's been explained over there, right? And then next thing is scenario. So here we rule business rule. So let's say feature as testing the ERP application, scenario as to verify the title, and then you have this given, when, then. All these are simple plain English text language, and this is called as Gherkins language. Okay, this keyword, these keywords like feature, scenario, given, when, then, and, but, scenario outline, examples, background, docstring. You could see all these things. So this is called a Gherkins language, and this is called as a line execution program. So just like in Python or YAML file, you will see YAML file while Shan explains the Docker. Okay, so I thought I will just give a heads up right now. So object-oriented programming language means, I mean, how the program will execute as per the object. When I say as per the object, if I say ob.test, it will directly go to the test method. The next line, if I say ob.hello, it will go to the hello method, and it can keep on jumbling. But whereas in Gherkins, over here, this is line oriented execution. So it will not jumble here and there. If I start from line 20, it will execute line 20, 21, 23, 24, 25. That's how it goes. I hope that's clear, right? So this will act as a test case document too. Remember, initially I was telling, I mean, if we get a file where we have this test case and automation script all together in a single piece. This is that same thing I was trying to refer that time. This dot feature file. Now let's try to paste a simple test steps over here. I will also use the keywords. Okay. I will just delete this and then I will add the manual test case. So look over here. So the feature is ERP application login. The scenario which we're going to test is the title verification. Hang on. Yeah. So, and the next thing is given. So we have given the precondition. Remember, we in our code, we were telling about the precondition, right? So given as a user, open the browser and enter the application URL. When they enter the username and password and click submit, then user is navigated to the dashboard and verify the browser and close the browser. So it's very simple. I mean, you try to make it as much as complicated, but who know how to read this can understand it. And I think this is not only in English, this have been in multiple languages too. So that's the beauty of the feature file, and that's how the behavior driven development is coming all about, which will be explained a little later. And you could see those green icons like pretty format, fine step. I'm not going to come to all those things right away. Let's just try to run this feature file. So I'm going to run as a Cucumber feature. Let's wait for a while. Oh, wow. There you go. This will bring a little bit cheer for the freshers, right? You have the code over there ready-made. So you have this scenario as undefined, and you have 4 steps are also undefined. And what you need to do is simply copy and paste it. Yeah. So we'll just copy all these codes and then we'll paste in a step definition class. So you heard a new word, right? Step definition. So that's a Java class where it does the binding. So what happens is like, so I'll come to it. So I just created a folder, or sorry, not a folder, I should say a package. My bad. So I created a package named step definition. I just created a very simple Java class. Okay. I'm just going to paste it over here. I will just remove few unwanted code. I shouldn't say unwanted, but for this demo, we don't need it at present. So this been an auto generated, right? So we'll just remove it. Similarly, you guys need to import it, okay? For that, all this annotation at the rate, then at the rate, when you will get the error, you just need to import it, okay? Let's just remove everything. Okay, now if you observe it, in the feature file, we started with given. And if you observe inside, it's given as a user, open the browser and enter the application URL. Even if you don't know coding, or even if you don't know Java, anyone could understand, okay, this line of code or whatever things that's going to come up inside this method will execute these steps. Very simple, right? Okay. So I'm just trying to compare you with the feature file. So for the given keyword, it will automatically generate an annotation at the rate given. Now let's try to run this time. Let's see what will happen. So it says ERP application feature and test case passed. Why it got passed? Because there was no assertion that happened. So it checked over here. If you just compare in the console itself, given as a user open the browser and enter application URL, the straight away it's shown. I mean, verify login dot as a user. That means that we have a corresponding method corresponding to each steps of the feature file. So that's the only thing it checks, whether we have a corresponding Java code a Java method corresponding to each line. Now that's been done. Now we are ready to paste our old login test Java. So I'm just going to change the method name. There is no harm in changing the method name, but guys, make sure the things that comes after that annotation, the thing in the double quotes, that shouldn't be changed. If you change it, then your code will not run. Okay. So now it's almost self-explanatory, right? I mean, you have an init browser, you have a verify login, and you have a close browser. Now it's time to copy paste. That's the most thing which every developer or even any tester, automation tester does it. Even I told you earlier, I mean, you just need to copy it and you just need to paste it. But the thing is, you should know. So that's what happens when you copy paste just like that. You could see the error. And if you don't know what's the error, if you are not able to resolve this error, that will become the game changer. Okay. So what happened is, like, I forgot to copy the web driver. So I'll just copy it. I'll paste it. That's it. Now level 1 is success. Precondition is completed. Now let's copy the actions part. You copy it, you paste it. I'm not sure if anyone is trying it live over here. Those who are trying it, keep going. If you have any doubt, just put in the chat window. And finally, the assertion. So this comes in the then part. So then keyword always is used for the actual versus expected. So I'm just going to use that. So, okay, I just named it bad for that file name. Never mind. So guys, next error. In line number 40, you have the next error. Can you guess what's the error or why we have an error in this line number 40? We copied the same code from login test, right? Can you guess? It's because in line number 33, I have given string title is equal to driver.getTitle. In line number 33, that have become a local variable. You see my point. So we have three types of variable, right? I mean, local variable, instance, and static. And what's the property of local variable? The visibility will be only inside that method. So that's what I was trying to tell. The programming knowledge comes handy when we try to copy paste. You don't need to think and write hell number of code. I mean, almost everything will be there, but you need to understand how to resolve these kinds of errors. So what I'm going to do is, like, I'll just make title as an instance variable. I'll just move from line 33. I'll just make it as, yeah, it's telling either create a local variable. So I'll just make this as an instance variable. Guys, I hope it's pretty much clear, right? Yeah, I'm just making it, yeah. Now I'll just initialize it outside every method. Yeah. Anything that's declared inside method is local. Anything that's declared outside method and inside class is instance, right? Okay, I'm not going deeply into all these things. And finally, you have this, the closing stuff. Yeah, copy, paste. I think it's pretty simple, right? So you could see, I mean, anyone who comes in and look into the, so they can understand what's happened in the feature file and what's going to happen even in the step definition class. So let's try to run this. So it's launching the ERP application login screen. So the Chrome driver was started successfully. So guys, I mean, the next section will be mainly for, I mean, it will be for the intermediate level. Just keep watching it. You'll definitely learn more. So now the browser has been launched. Yeah, I mean, let's complete the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing. The precondition. So right now the precondition completed. Then at the rate then part, when is completed. Now over here that at the rate then will be executed, whatever code that was there, that at the, pretty cool, right? So one scenario is passed, and if you could see over here, we have renamed the method. So given as a, if you look in the console, given as a user open the browser and enter the application URL, you could see a corresponding method. So verify login dot init browser. So that method has been invoked, and that's how the execution happens. And that's why it say 4 steps has been passed. Clear? And if you come over here, you could see, yeah. So with the help of the JUnit, we have completed the execution. Good. Now let's have some negative scenarios. I'm just going to change the expected, or I mean, what we are going to expect. I'm just going to change it. I just want to make my test case fail this time. So let's fail it. Yeah. Now we're gonna run it, and let's see how it's gonna work. Definitely it will fail, but there is something new that you will see this time. Okay. Okay, the Chrome driver started successfully. Those who have worked with the test engine might feel this, I mean, they can easily correlate. Those who are fresher also, I mean, they can start learning it. Okay, so the browser has been launched, sign in button. And there you go. This time we're gonna fail. So even my browser is not closed. Why? Because I have returned the closed browser after the assertion part. So which is actually wrong. That's not the right way. But I just want to go just like a beginner. Okay. So if you see over here, one scenario that's been failed, you had 4 steps, 2 has been passed, 1 failed and 1 skipped. That skipped test case. Over there we have written the closing browser. So there comes the framework part. If you just copy paste and do things, then things won't work as we expect. So there comes the framework part comes handy. Okay. So we had 4 steps. 1 step got failed, 1 step was skipped, and 2 was passed. Clear? So that's why it said there is a big need of any automation framework to handle the scenarios end to end. Now this time, what I'm going to do is like, I will just give the URL in this features file. Okay. I'll just copy the URL. So last time we hard coded the URL in the Java code, right? That's not a good practice, guys. I mean, we shouldn't hard code anything in our code. What happens is like when if we try to deploy the code in a server or somewhere, each time we have to restart the server. But if we write the code, I mean, if you give the external values in an Excel file or a feature file or XML or somewhere, you don't need to restart it. You don't need to restart the server. So that all comes in the long term. I mean, when it comes to the real time. If you do right now, you won't feel that much difference. What's the difference? You need to rerun the code anyways. Okay. You'll understand as you start working in any automation project. So this time, I just gave the URL, username, password over here. So now this has become more self-explanatory, right? And if you observe, you could see the external values are highlighted in green. Okay, which itself show these value will be taken from this feature file. And there are multiple ways. So you have 5 ways to fetch it. I'm not going to show it right now. I'll make it as simple as possible. Error. Guess what? We had changed the feature file, right? We had changed the feature file. The moment you change the feature file, what happens is it don't find an exact match of Java code in the step definition file. Correct? If you observe here, it says for two methods, it don't see it. Correct? If you look our feature file line number 6 and 7, for those 2 lines, we didn't do any change. So it was able to find the exact match in the step definition file or in the step definition Java class, but it couldn't find it. I mean, there is a change in the method signature, and you could see string arg1, and in the second method you have two arguments that's been passed. Okay, so let's copy paste it. Yeah, I mean, it's the copy paste itself. Guys, you learn programming language, then it's just the copy paste, nothing more, nothing less. You just copy it. Yeah, we're gonna change that. This time we have an argument that's going to pass as string arg1. So that's a local variable. I'm just going to change it as URL so that it will be more readable, right? Okay, I'll just copy it. I'll just give it in the get method. Okay, that part is done. Now we have the username and password one. Again, copy. Control C, Control V. Yeah, we'll just, this time I'm not going to rename the method, let it be there. I'm just going to rename it as username and password. See, again we are in trouble. You could see two errors, right? Line number 28 and line number 30. Can you guess why we got an error again? It's the same thing, guys. I mean, I already told whatever parameter we pass through the method that act as a local variable, and we already have the same variable used inside this method. So now the JVM doesn't know what to do. You have the two things same. So I will just rename it. So I'll name it as, yeah, I mean, we'll just change the name. Yeah, you pass or something. Oh, okay, you name, and also I'll change it as you pass. Now the error is gone. Now it's ready to launch. We'll also remove this value. Yeah, I forgot to remove that earlier. I'll just remove it.
Team, just a time check. It's 10:50 now. Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'll just move on. Okay, I'm just moving it. I'm going to run this, and this time it's gonna run. And that's it. I mean, that will be run successfully. Okay. Yeah, there you go. This time we have the for method. That, I mean, that one scenario that's passed, and you have the 4-step definitions. Okay. Now I'll introduce you one more thing, which is called as a runner class. Okay. So imagine you have 10 or 20 feature file. You cannot go to each and every feature file, right? You need to have a single point or single location from where you could control every feature file. And there it goes. This is the runner class. And you have two annotations, namely @runwith and @cucumber options. Okay. So @runwith, inside the annotation I mentioned cucumber.class, which means this test execution should run like a cucumber test. And let's run it out. So you also see two keywords at cucumber option. You have features and glue. So features, you should mention the folder name where all the location of feature file is there. And inside that glue, you have to mention where the step definition Java file is all about. Okay, I'm just moving out. I mean, maybe you guys will get bored. Yeah, so if you look over here, all the 4 execution has been completed. And this time you will see something more over here. So given, when, then, and everything has been passed. Correct. So that's the way how you have you can run the cucumber test. You have, so I'm not going to execute the negative scenario this time. So that's the beauty of all about the cucumber basic cucumber test. I'll just hand over to Sam. So he will now take you through you know what, the exact framework. So over to you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks Manu for your wonderful presentation. So let me share my screen. So let's hope you all have got a very basic understanding on what is Cucumber and how we can write a basic script using Java. Now, let's have a deep dive into behavior-driven development or BDD. So at least some of you have heard about this concept BDD. So what is BDD or behavior-driven development? So BDD is, at least some of us still believe that BDD is a tool. It is not a tool. It is a way of software development, or it is a development practice, which is widely followed in agile environment. So let us look how it got evolved. BDD was evolved from another terminology that is called as TDD, TDD or test-driven development. TDD is nothing. So if you're following a TDD practice, you'll create a unit test, test typically. So the test will initially fail, and later what happens? The test will. So you will create the application or the functionality. Okay. So once the functionality is created, your test will become to pass. So this cycle is continued as a process. This is called as TDD or test-driven development. So TDD basically came into the market as the best practices followed in one of the lean software development methodologies like extreme programming. So what is behavior-driven development? The creators of BDD, what they did, they have taken the good aspects of TDD and created the new concept, behavior-driven development. So behavior-driven development is basically used in Agile to encourage collaboration and shared understanding. So as we have already seen how to write scenarios inside BDD, hope you have got a basic understanding. Okay, now let's see. There are a lot of frameworks available in the market. So there are tools created to support this concept. So Cucumber is one of the tools that is available in Java. JBehave, we have JBehave, Yada, and SpecFlow. These are some of the popular tools which are based on the concept of BDD. So these frameworks can be used to create framework, and you can try automation with that. So now let's have a look how this BDD is relevant in Agile, or how this BDD flows typically in an Agile team. Okay, let's say if you're having a Scrum team or typically a software development team with different stakeholders. Let's say we have a tester, we have a developer, there will be a product owner, there will be a business analyst. So let's say these people initially what they do, they will sit together and they will discuss about the functionalities. This part is called as user story grooming, or this is where situation where we define the scenarios. So you can see a picture over here. You can see the first one. You can see product owner. Product owner is typically the owner of the team. So who owns the product? So he will raise the question. Okay, I want a feature. Okay, let's say I want a login feature. Okay, so then people will start asking questions like, what if something happens? Or the QMA person will ask, what if something not happens? So this will help to form a clear-cut examples about how this part of the software should behave. So this is how we create examples. So typically scenarios in BDD. So once we create the examples in Gherkins format, which is written in plain English, the same thing is taken by the automation engineer to write test scripts. So I will repeat once again. So first of all, there will be a discussion where every team member will be involved in a grooming session where examples of the scenarios are created and written in Gherkins format. So later, automation engineer will pick this scenario and will take it for automation. So you can use any of the framework that you are using. Say for example, if you are using functional automation, you can go for Selenium. If you are using API automation, you can go for that. So you will couple this code with the BDD using tools like Cucumber, and will run the scripts in a DevOps platform. So that is how it works in an Agile world. Now, let's say I think most of the people, I think some of us are still beginners in automation. But let's give a bigger picture. Uh, let's imagine if you have the basic understanding about how to write scripts in Selenium or how to create scripts using Cucumber. Now, let's say we want to create a framework. Okay, we need to know what are the possible tools that we may need to integrate. So for now, what you have done is we have classified the framework into different portions, and we have identified few tools from each section. We have not listed out each and every tool, but we have listed few tools from each section so that you can easily relate, okay, what are the tools used in this framework and why they are used. So let us start. First of all, if you're going with a BDD framework, you have to opt the Cucumber or tools like Cucumber or JBehave, which is basically the BDD tool. So first of all, you have to select the BDD tool. So if it is Java, you can go for Cucumber or JBehave. Next part is you always want to create tests. In order to create tests, so definitely we want to have a unit testing framework. So TestNG and JUnit are one of the few popular tools that are available in Java. And coming to the automation tool, so there is no dependency like Cucumber will only run with Selenium. So whatever automation tool you're having, you can couple it with the BDD. So basically, if you have a functional automation using Selenium, or if you are doing API automation using tools like Rest Assured, you can easily integrate that with Cucumber. So that is about automation tool integration. Now, when you start creating a framework, so you need different libraries in order to support the framework. So for example, if you in your framework, if you want to interact with Excel and do some operation, then you have to have Apache tools like Apache POI. These are basically Java libraries which will help you to interact with Excel. So there are similar tools like Java JDBC, which will help to connect to database and perform operations. So you need support libraries. So coming to the next part, we need a build tool. So what do you mean by build tool? As you have seen earlier, we have provided in pond.xml, we have provided dependency information. So in your framework, if you are using multiple third-party libraries, okay, you need these to be mentioned in the framework. In order to maintain them and to build the solution, you have to opt any of the build frameworks. So Maven and Gradle are some of the free frameworks that you can choose as a build tool. Now, if you're having an automation framework, definitely once you complete the test execution, you have to showcase this result to the team or maybe to the higher management. How is it possible? So you have to integrate report frameworks to the to your project. So how can you do that? So there are a lot of third-party reports available which support uh, Cucumber. So you can see Cucumber and Allure are some of the reports which you can integrate. Now, coming to the next part, let's say if you're working in a team where there are multiple automation engineers who are involved in scripting, so we need to maintain the code effectively. Okay, we need to maintain different versions of code. So how is it possible? That is possible with any of the source code management systems. So typically, Git and GitHub are the popular ones that are used. We also have subversion, typically called as SVN. So these are the source code management tools which you can use. Now, let's say in your team, if you are having a limited number of resources, that is, let's say you have to run the scripts in an iPad UI, or you have to run the scripts in a mobile UI, but you don't have the device. Okay, or you have to run the scripts in different IE versions or different Chrome versions, but you don't have the machines with that configuration. So in that case, you can rely on cloud providers. So Source Labs and Browser Stacks, these are some of the cloud tools which will help to do the execution. So these tools can be integrated with your framework. So what happens? You will trigger the execution from the local machine, but it will connect to the cloud server, and the actual execution will be happening there, and you will get the result back. So this is cloud integration. So you can opt for cloud integration using any of the tools. Now the last part. So let's say you have a framework ready, and you have everything automated. Now, if in Agile world, continuous integration is a must, which means if you want to get effective feedback about the quality of the build or the quality of the software that you are making, it has to be in a continuous process. So you can integrate your code with the continuous integration tools like Jenkins or GitLab. So what happens? Your code will be run in their pipeline based on the requirement of the project. So it will automatically run and it will give the reports. We'll see in the coming slides, how you can integrate your code with Jenkins or GitLab. So hope you got a big picture about how automation framework can be created using various tools. Okay, now let's have a demo. So we'll have a quick look at how a framework is structured. Okay, how a Cucumber framework is structured, and how to commit your code or how to share your code to GitHub. So we look at the Git commands, and also we look at Jenkins. Jenkins is one of the popular CI/CD tool where we'll show you the demo on how we can run the test scripts from Jenkins. See, for now, I'm using IntelliJ. So the IDE that you are seeing in front is IntelliJ IDEA. So this is open source, or this is a free tool which you can download from their official website. So this is something similar to the Eclipse IDE which we have used in the previous session. So this is basic IDE. The first thing that you need to do is we need to create uh, we need to finalize a folder structure. Okay, so you have decided to create a framework. The first thing you need to do is you need to finalize the folder structure. So coming to the folder structure, the one easy option is to go with the Maven default folder structure. As we are already using Maven, you can opt for the default folder structure of Maven. So default folder structure will look something like this. It will be having SRC main and test packages. So let's say if you're already having a traditional framework, okay, if you're already having a traditional framework, you can always copy the libraries or the classes which you have used there. So these are some of the folder structure which you can create. So basically, if you are using Selenium, definitely we have to use page object model, which is the most widely used design pattern coming to the Selenium framework. So we have to create page packages. So what does this page package contains? So page basically contains classes corresponding to the application that you're going to automate. So we'll come to that. So what are the utilities that you can integrate in your framework? So basically, so we discussed earlier, if we are having any database interactions, we have to have that in the framework. So you can always create as much number of utilities based on the requirement. If you want to have a Excel integration, you can create a utility for interacting with Excel. So now let's look at the page class. So what does the page class contains? Page class basically contains web elements and methods written which corresponds to the behaviors or the actions that is happening inside each page. So here you can see methods written for login and for other scenarios. Now, what is there in the test package? I mean, from a BDD perspective or from a Cucumber perspective, you have to have runner class. So we already seen in the previous session, runner class is basically a class which contains the tag information, the tag which you're going to run, the location of your feature file, and few informations like the plugin details, or how you want to have the plugin, how you want to run the plugins. Okay, now we need to have a hook class. Hook is basically a class which defines what you need to done before and after each scenario. So you can customize it. These are the options provided by Cucumber JUnit. Okay, so you can create before and after classes. Now coming to the so you need to create scenarios or the feature files. So you already seen how a feature file will look like. So you can create a feature under the resource folder. You can create the feature file under resource folder, and you can create scenarios like this. So here we have multiple scenarios written for valid and invalid logins. Okay, you can parameterize the inputs like username and password. We also have the option to write scenario outline. Okay, so we also can add tags. So right now there is a regression tag already. I have added a smoke tag. The smoke tag will run SLP to run the smoke scenarios. So here you can see examples written. So examples are basically if you want to parameterize your script with different inputs, you can opt for scenario outline. So now, so let's move to the other sections. So we have a web definition file, which we discussed earlier. So this will be the binding between the features or the scenarios created to the steps written here. Okay, so here is the place where you copy the Selenium code, and also you can write assertions here. So right now, for assertions, we have used TestNG. Sorry, JUnit. So JUnit is used as the unit testing tool here. Now, so coming back, so there are some more things that you need to look at. For example, okay, you have target folder. The target folder is basically the folder where the reports will be generated. So you can see the reports in an HTML format. So we'll come to that later. So we have the folder location for report. Now we have pom.xml. So pom.xml is the XML file where we update the dependency information. So it is a place where you tell the framework, okay, what all dependencies you need to be downloaded in order to run the solution. So we have used Selenium dependency here, then Cucumber dependencies, and also you can provide additional informations like plugins. The plugins are basically here we are use a report plugin, okay, in order to run the reports. And additionally, you can add properties or any kind of information that is required for your framework to run here. So this is highly customizable. Okay, now coming to the execution part. So we are executing this as a Maven command with the help of a Maven command. Right now, I'm going to click on the Maven install command, which will trigger the execution. Okay, so once the install command is triggered, the execution will begin. Okay, it will start compiling the project, and okay, it will build the solution and it will trigger the execution. Okay, you can see the project is getting built. Okay, it will. So right now, in the runner class, we have given regression as a tag. So you can see those scenarios which are marked under regression will be getting executed. So the browser has launched. So we have three scenarios written with the regression tag. So it will be running one by one. So once a run is completed, you can see the results in the console. Okay, so this is a basic thing that you can verify whether your test is passed or not. And later we can move on to the report and see how it is reflected there. Okay. now the test run is completed. You can see the basic result in the console here. So there are 5 tests which has completed the execution, and also it will push the report. Okay, you can also verify the build status. So on the left side, you can see a tick mark corresponds to the result of the execution. So now you can navigate to the HTML folder, HTML file, where we have the reports. So we'll open the reports from here. So the report will look something like this. So this is Cucumber report, which we have integrated with the framework. So this will give a consolidated view. Like right now, it is showing the results based on the scenarios. So we have different options, like to show based on features, based on steps. So you can open each feature or each scenario and view the result. So the duration will also be displayed here. So here you can see the steps and the time taken to complete each step. Also, so there are different options like scenario sequence, and if you want to verify what are the tags that you have that are getting executed right now, it is regression tag with 5 scenarios. So you can see 5 scenarios are associated with the tag regression. So you can click on the feature, or you can see what are the scenarios listed under each feature. So this is all about reports. Okay, here you can see another scenario. Okay, so the next thing is we'll see how we can commit your code, or if you want to share the code uh, to GitHub, how can we do that? So basically, there are 2 different ways by which you can share the code to GitHub, or you can track the code. So basically, as we are using Git inside this project, we already seen in the previous slide, we are using Git for the source control. So there are 2 options to do it in the framework. You can first option is to do it manually using the CLI interface. Okay, so you can go to the you can install the Git in your local machine, and you can open the commands through the command line and do the operations. The another or the easy alternative for that is to do the same thing with the IDE. So here every IDE, whether it is Eclipse or if it is IntelliJ, they provide Git integration. So now we are going to look how we can save the changes that we have done and how to share the changes to GitHub. Okay, so in IntelliJ, okay, so let's move to the GitHub. In GitHub, we have created the repository, and we have shared this solution or shared this project. Okay, you can see there is a repository area where you can see the same project, BDD-project is available here. So once you navigate to that, you can see the same folder structure. Okay, so the same folder structure, you can navigate from here. So okay, so basically, you need to know about the branching. Okay, so branching is a way in which you can, so different people can work on the same solution. So based on the requirement of a project, or every organization will have their own branding strategy. So this determines, okay, let's say if you're an automation engineer, okay, you will be working on a particular branch. Okay, so there will be a master branch for your project, and your code will be merged with the master or the ultimate branch. So this is kind of process. So every team follow their own branching strategy. So now let's see, here we have a single master branch, so which is your ultimate code. Okay, now we can also see the commit information, so we'll come to that later. So now let's quickly come back to IntelliJ. So let's come back to the project. So here, what we're going to do, we're going to make some changes, okay? And we're going to make some changes, and we are going to commit and share the code. See here, in the right corner, in the bottom corner, you can see the Git branches. So this is provided by the integration with Git. So this is already there in IntelliJ. So once the branch is configured with GitHub, once the solution is configured to connect with GitHub, you can see your branches here. So here you have two set of things. The first thing is the local branch where you are actually making the changes, and remote branch is actually the branch that is available in the GitHub. So that which we have shown just before this. Okay. Now, so now right now we are working on the local branch, which is a local master. Okay. Now let's move to the VCS. In the top portion of IntelliJ, you can see an option for VCS. So if you are using Eclipse, there is a similar thing that you can find, that is eGit. eGit is a plugin which is required for the Git operations from Eclipse. Similarly, we have something called as VCS in IntelliJ, where we can do the Git operation. So here you can see, so there are a lot of options under Git. So whatever operations you need to perform with Git, it is listed here. You just need to act based on what operation you need to perform. Okay. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes in the framework, and I'm going to commit this. So there is a commit option under VCS. Okay. So now let's make some changes to the project. So I'm going to add a tag. Okay. So right now I'm going to add a tag like sanity. So we are adding a new tag named sanity. Okay. And also we'll go to the step definition file and we'll add a line of code. So basically I'm going to copy paste this code. Okay, I'm going to copy paste this code and I'm commenting this line. Now we're going to save these changes. So the commit is something similar to save. You're saving the changes. Okay. So once you click on that, it will show the changes that you have done. So there are changes in two files. In the bottom part, you can see what exactly you have changed. So you have added a sanity tag to the existing version. Now you click on the definition file. Similarly, you can see you have added a line of code, commented line of code here. Now, so you can see the changes here. Now, there is a commit message which you can provide. So this will give an idea about what exactly you have changed. So this will be helpful for others. So right now we're giving a sample command like second commit. Okay. So now we'll commit this. So we need to click on the commit option. So it will commit the code. It connect. It will do the commit, and if the commit is successful, you will get a prompt message. Okay. Now we are going to push the changes to GitHub. So go to VCS Git. There is an option to push. So once you click on that, you can see where it is going to get pushed. So in your from your local branch, it is going to connect with the GitHub branch, and you can also see the differences. Okay, these are the two files where you have made the changes. So you can click on that once again, and you can clearly see what exactly you have changed. So you can verify files one by one before you do the push, and you can click on the push. Okay, so once you do that, it will push the changes to GitHub. So GitHub, you already seen that GitHub already has a project, and you are pushing these changes to the remote master branch. Okay, so you can see the push is successful. Now let's go back and see whether it is reflected in GitHub. So we'll refresh the URL and see. Okay, so you see the same the description second commit that you have given is shown here. Okay, so your change has arrived here, and also you can see the differences. Okay, once you click on the commit, you can see it is committed 1 minute ago, and you can see the same changes that you have done to the previous version. Okay, so you can once again verify the change here. So before moving to the next topic, if you have any questions, you can type in the comment box. We will try to answer that. Or else, if we can move that to the last session where we have Q&A. So you can save your questions and feel free to uh, type that in the comment box. So we'll answer it during the Q&A session. Okay, so let's move on. So now let's talk about Jenkins. So what is Jenkins? So why it is required? So we already discussed the BDD is something that is very important in Agile, and uh, how it is connected with Jenkins, or why do you want this tool? So I will come to that. So basically, what is Jenkins? Jenkins is an orchestration tool which connects different technologies or different tools in a single platform. So why it is used? This tool is used to handle the continuous delivery pipelines of every project. So every organization will be having their own CI/CD tool. So typically, Jenkins is one of the popular tool. So we have other options like GitLab is another option. So Bamboo is another option. So these are some of the tools available. So what exactly we can perform with this tool? So there are a lot of tools. If you look at any project, you'll be using different kinds of tools for various purposes. For code and commit, there will be a lot of tools used, whether it can be Visual Studio, Eclipse, IntelliJ, whatever. So there will be build and configuration tools. There will be scanning and monitoring tools. So sometimes there will be tools for monitoring the status of different servers or different services that is running in your application or running in your project. So there will be release management tools, or for managing releases, there are different tools used. So there are tools for the deployment, or to get the release done, there are different tools. So these tools can be integrated in a single platform. So let me tell you one simple example. Okay, so most of the tech giants like Amazon, Google, or Facebook, you can see they continuously make changes to their application, and you can see if you're using a smartphone, you can see most of the apps. You'll get notifications. Okay, there is an update. Okay, so it is getting updated continuously, or these tech giants are continuously making changes to their applications. So they're releasing their changes or they're reaching their functionalities. So how is it made possible? Of course it can be made possible, but how can we maintain that quality? So in order to maintain quality, so you have to integrate several tools and check that whether the end outcome or the end product is having quality or not. So this is taken care by CI/CD tools. Okay, so let's have a quick demo. So let's think from automation perspective. So we talked about a lot of tools. So as an automation engineer, you don't need to understand, or you don't need to get expertise on these tools. But what you need to understand is how automation is connected with Jenkins. So let's say you're having so let's take a very simple example. Imagine you are having your project team is building a web application, and the developers are making the changes, or the developers have created some functionalities, and they are going to push their code from the development environment to testing environment to perform testing. Okay, so here if you are having automation, okay, you can say, hey Jenkins, run the smoke suit and check whether the quality is good or not. So Jenkins, what it does, whenever the developer push their changes from the development environment to testing, the smoke test will be triggered. So the smoke test will run, and what will be the result? If the result is pass, okay, it will continue to deploy the code. If it is failure, what happens? It will stop the deployment and will say, okay, this it will so it will send the information to the developers saying, okay, this code has got serious problems, you have to fix it. So developers will continuously make changes like this. Let's say if you're having a regression suite, and the code is available in QA environment, you can tell Jenkins to run the regression suite maybe in a frequent manner or in a nightly basis, and you can intimate the entire team, okay, whether the test scripts or the functionalities are good or not. So this will help to give a real-time feedback about the quality of your application. So that is exactly what Jenkins does in from a testing perspective or from an automation perspective. So now let's see. So I have started Jenkins in my Jenkins instance in my local machine. So of course, in a typical enterprise environment, you will be having that in a server. But for now, have started the instance in my local machine for the demonstration, and we have created a project, the same BDD-project we have created here. So let's look and see what exactly we have configured here. So, so once you open the project, you can find a configure option at the in the left pane. So once you click on that, you can see, okay, you can see, yeah, so you can see the details, what exactly is configured here. So let us look into that one by one. So there is a general option where you can give the basic details about the project. So and there are a few other options as well. Okay, so the next option is source code management. So this is extremely important. So source code management, as we talked earlier, so our code is there in the GitHub. Okay, so whatever job that Jenkins is going to perform, that will be typically happening by connecting to the GitHub. Okay, so we have to give the GitHub URL and the credentials which we need to connect to the GitHub. Okay, so and also so we have given the repository URL and the credentials here, and also the branch which we need to trigger, so which we need to use. So now next thing is build triggers. So right now we have created a project inside Jenkins. So we have to tell Jenkins, okay, when this project needs to be triggered. So that is called as a build trigger. So there are different options by which we can trigger the execution from Jenkins. So you can see you can trigger it remotely from scripts. If you are using any scripts, you can trigger it remotely using that. And also you have the options to periodically run that. So what is a periodic run? So say for example, if you want to run your scripts on a nightly basis, or in every Wednesday, if you are run the regression, you can click on that build periodic option, periodically option. Okay, so there is another option for poll SCM. So this it will poll source control management system. Like here we are using GitHub, so it will continuously check the GitHub and will check whether there is any changes happening to the repository. If it identifies a change has happened, it will trigger the script based on that. So these are some of the different ways by which you can handle triggers from Jenkins. And similarly, we have built environments. If we have any environments, you can specify here. Now there is a build option. So basically, we are using a Maven project. So we have added a build command here. So here, clean install is a Maven command which is required to do the execution or to perform the execution. So that you can update it here. Now, so this is basically a part of Maven goals. This is available as a plugin. Now, we have post build actions. Post build actions means what you want to perform once the build operation is completed. Say, for example, as we are dealing with the automation framework, once the automation run is completed, we'll get the report. The report will be generated in a particular folder. So we can say Jenkins to copy the folder to some location to archive that and keep it for later reference. So these are the some of the options which you can do. Okay, so you can also add the generated report folder to archive to some location, or you can add, if you are using JUnit, you can export the JUnit result. You can configure it here. So there are plugins available for integrating TestNG. Another thing is email notification. So let's say if once the Jenkins run is completed, if you want to intimate the entire team about the status of this, the quality run or this execution, you can configure the email here. So you can say, okay, if the test script failed, you can intimate the team saying that, okay, so the build has got some problem and these are the reports. So these kind of email notifications can be configured from Jenkins. Okay, so let's go back to the project view and let's trigger the project. So the Jenkins project which we have created. So typically, so once you open the project, in the left pane you can see an option to build now. So once you click on that, you can see here the build has started. Okay, so it is progressing. On the left side, we can see a console output where so you can see the sequence of events that are happening. Okay, so first of all, it will try to connect to the GitHub and it will check out the code into the machine where the execution happens. So it will compile. It is the same code that you have previously executed. It will connect to the GitHub repository. So here you can see the Maven command that we are using, clean install. So if the dependencies are not available, it will download the dependencies from Maven in order to build the project. So basically, Jenkins support a lot of tools. There are a lot of plugins available in the Jenkins marketplace. Okay, here you can see the regression tag. Okay, so it is executing the same regression scenarios which we have executed previously. So as I said earlier, there are a lot of the plugins which we can try to integrate with Jenkins. So you can go for headless mode of execution if you want. You can configure that in the Jenkins. So right now you can see the UI. If you're going with headless mode, you'll not see the Chrome opening. So once the execution is completed, what it does, it will. So we have configured to copy the report. Okay, we have configured to copy the HTML report and keep it for reference. So what you have done, once the execution is completed, we'll go back and check whether the report has copied or not. At any point of time, say for example, if the execution is already completed, if you want to look later, okay, you can go and check the build number and you can navigate to the results. So you can find the reports from there. Okay, now the build is successful. So now let's go back to the project view and see where the report has been generated and how to view that. Okay, let's refresh the URL. Okay, So go back to the project. So here you can see the build number, and in the result section you can see workspace. Okay, click on the workspace. You can see there is a the target folder where we have the report. So click on the folder. You can see generated hyphen reports where we have the HTML report. Okay, so this report you can either view it from here, or you can download this as a zip file. Okay, so right now we'll download the file to the local machine. Okay, so the file is getting downloaded, and you can unzip the folder and just open the folder. You can see the HTML file. So it is exactly the same report which we have done, which we have created, which we discussed later before this. Yeah. So that's the end of this part actually. So if you have any questions, you can comment. You can comment through the inbox section, and let's go for question and answers. And next we'll move to the next part, which is Selenium Grid. So before going to that topic, if you have any questions, you can raise your hands, or you can type your questions now. Okay, so let's save the questions for Q&A session. So let's move on to the next topic, that is Selenium Grid. So we already discussed how to create a framework and how to trigger the execution from Jenkins. Now let's talk about a problem or a situation. Let's say you're having so you have started working on the automation framework, and you have created not many number of test scripts. Let's say you have 1,000 test scripts created. Now if you run this in a normal way, it may take more time. Let's say, like, if it is taking 8 hours or 6 hours to complete 1,000 test scripts, so it will be very difficult for the team to get a real-time feedback. So Selenium provides this functionality, or this add-on, that is called as Selenium Grid. So Grid is a server client architecture where you will create a hub machine. Okay, so hub is basically a kind of server where you can connect as much number of devices. So it can be typical virtual machines, or even you can configure this in a local machine. Okay, so let's say if you want to run your scripts at the same time in a Linux machine and in a Windows machine, or if you want to run the same scripts in mobile or in any other minimized devices like Mac or iPad or some other devices, if you need to run that, you can go for Selenium Grid. So one of the other advantages of having this, you can have parallel execution as well. So the main advantage of having Selenium Grid is you can handle distributed and parallel testing. Okay, so let's have a look at how we can configure this grid. Okay, and how it will look like, how we can trigger scripts in order to run in the Selenium Grid. So in order to do that, so basically, in order to do that, you have to download. So there are different ways to do that. So we are demonstrating using one of the simple way which we can start with. So that is to download the Selenium server jar file from their official website. So once it is downloaded, so you can you have to do some command line operations to set up the grid. Okay, so what we are going to do is, so we have certain commands. Okay, these are available in the Selenium official documentation. So it's available in the website. We can check how to configure a hub. So in order to configure a hub or in order to set up a server, you just need to have this few commands. Okay, you can just spin up command line, and you can paste this code. So what you're going to do is we are with the help of jar file which we have here, we are telling Selenium Grid to set up a hub for us. Okay, so we are going to set up the local machine as a hub. Okay, so you can see it is going to set up the hub in a particular port, which we can view from Chrome. Okay, so this is the interface that is provided. So you can go to the console and see. Okay, so now the hub is configured. Now you want to connect different devices to this hub. Let's say if you are having a Linux machine and you want to do some execution there, you can connect to this server. Okay, if you're having a mobile device and you want to do the execution here, you can configure the node in that machine and you can connect to this server. So in order to do that, we'll come back to the commands. Okay, so this is the basic command required to set up a node. Okay, so there are a lot of options to customize this. If you want a particular version of Chrome to be configured in the node, you can give that as a parameter. So right now we are doing with the basic parameters. So again, we are going to open the command window and we are going to type in the code here. Okay, so let's see what change has reflected. So here you can see, right now you can see the local machine has connected as a node to the server or to the hub. Okay, so this machine is connected. So with the basic configuration, there is a configuration for this. Okay, so this is basic configuration where we can run 5 parallel Chrome sessions and 5 parallel Firefox sessions and 1 IE session. Okay, you can customize it. If you're having a good server machine, you can configure to run with more number of sessions. Okay, now let's have a look how to run the scripts in a grid setup. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back to IntelliJ project. Okay, so this is a sample project created in order to demonstrate the grid execution. So here we have okay, so we have the configuration part done. So that is we have to provide the host URL. So basically we need to connect with the hub in order to run the execution. You have to provide that as a remote WebDriver capability of Selenium. You have to update the URL there. And next thing is we have so we have page classes created here, and so we have test scripts here. So we have created for the sake of demonstration, we have created multiple tests, and now we are going to trigger this. Okay, let me run this. So it has triggered the execution. Okay, you can see the Chrome is getting initialized. Let's wait for that to complete. So you can see multiple Chrome windows are opening. So we have seen like there are 4 tests actually. So that's the reason why 4 Chrome browsers has opened. Now let's go back to the grid and refresh the URL. You can actually see the result here, or you can see, yeah. So you can see there is a change in the icon. Okay. So once you click on that, you can see, okay, the session is executing. So this is typically how you run your the Selenium scripts in a grid setup. So the advantage here is you can save time. Also you can have the same scripts run in different environments. You can run in Linux machine, you can run in different Chrome versions, you can run in different IE versions. So these are the capabilities which Selenium Grid is having. So so that's all about Selenium Grid. Now, so if you have any questions, you can ask here, or you can raise the hands. Or so you have to download the jar. So there's a question: how to execute the it is based on the execution. So basically, if you are how to run how to set up the grid. So you have to download the jar file. You can keep it in any location and you can set up the grid. So once the grid is set up, only thing that you need to take care from framework side is the URL should be proper. So basically, the Java classes, as I've shown earlier, so we can use you can go for the remote driver capability where you can enter where you can provide the URL of the hub. So this will help the execution to run on the hub setup. So it will connect to the hub and will execute based on what are the nodes connected to the hub. Okay, so as we have time constraints, we are moving on to the next part. Maybe if you have any questions, you can save it and you can raise this during the Q&A session. So now I'm stopping my screen share and over to Shan for the remaining portion.
Shan, please hold on for a second. So, team, we are expecting this to be completed by 12 o'clock. It's already 11:49. So, Shan's session will take another 30 minutes. So, can we spend another 30 minutes? Can we go ahead? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your responses. So, Shan, it's over to you. Please continue. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And thank you, gentlemen, for all your sessions. So I hope now we are into the third stage. Okay, that is all of the attendees, you are actually going to see what the next level of it is, because you might have already seen or heard about the Jenkins version control or anything. So you might be, this area might be a new for you. And I hope it will be a very informational session. So let's start with we have already built our automation framework and we are good with running the code in our machine, right? Now, before going into production scenario, we have to
Shan,
remember
one
that,
second. I think you didn't share the
yeah, no,
screen. Can you please?
just done. So I'm just going to share. So
Yeah,
thank you.
please.
Yep. Yeah. So for the production scenario, we need to actually make sure this is not going to be our machine in which our code is going to be run. So with that, let's go to the next session of our today's agenda, that is dependency resolution. So you can see the center of your having an application, and this is not necessarily to be application. In our context, it will be our automation code. So we have already talked about how we can actually use Maven or any other build tools actually to build your project. So that Maven actually or Gradle or any similar tools actually helps you to build your libraries required for your framework, depending on your language which you use. So this will include your Selenium libraries, your TestNG libraries or anything. But is that really enough for your script to get it running on a new machine? No, right? So let's see what are the other dependencies. So you need your browsers like your Chrome, Firefox, whichever you are planning to run your automation code. Then you need your compilers, of course, like your JDK if you are using a Java, or a .NET if you are running a .NET code, so on. And again, you have your dependency on your operating system. It may be Linux, Mac, or Windows, right? So how we can actually resolve all these issues? So there we actually have a trending technology that is called Docker. Now, most of you might have heard Docker in many of the social media, or your developer friends might be talking about it. And you might be wondering, okay, what is a Docker? So to bring everybody into the context, let me try to give you an example which you can actually relate to. That is your virtual machine. So I think most of you might be familiar with the virtual machine, where you actually have a ISO file which you can load into any uh, application such as a virtual box, and you have a working operating system with all the dependencies on it, right? Now, Docker can be an alternative or a virtual machine, mainly because it is very much easier to use and lightweight, because it does not include your operating system as such in its packaging. So the packaging is very light. And let's see the basic features of a Docker. It's called ready to use packing. That means like any Docker images, as we call, we can actually download and use it as soon as possible. You don't have to, you just need the Docker desktop, that is the Docker engine running on your machine. You don't have to worry about your Java version, Chrome version, Firefox version, anything. If you have a Docker image ready, it's ready to be distributed. Second, it is OS independent. So that means, let's say you are creating your code on a Windows machine, but when it goes to the production, they might be giving you a Linux machine to run your code, and you are not sure like whether your code will run or not. So Docker make sure like the Docker images which you are building is actually abstracted from the host operating system. So that means like even if your test machine is a Linux machine, you can still run your Selenium code or anything which is actually built on a Windows machine. Third point, it is isolated. That means like you can have multiple Docker images running at the same time, and everything will be isolated from each other unless you explicitly connect it. And on top of that, even the Docker containers are isolated from your host operating system. That means like any service which is running in the Docker container will not be accessible to your host system. That means like you are not going to get any conflicts with any shared resources if you are not connecting into the host system. And last and the most useful point of the Docker is like you can spin up n number of containers. That means like if you have a automation code which is going to run for a specific system, you can actually scale up in like a few commands, like just I would say like one command to actually spin up like multiple things so that your tests are completed faster. Or if you want to target your systems to multiple environments. Now, what is the Docker stack actually? You have your computer in the center. So this can be even a virtual operating system. Okay, it's not really necessary to be having a hardware itself. Then you have your host operating system, your Windows, Mac, or Linux. And then here comes your Docker layer, which actually abstracts your application and dependencies. So when you are actually distributing your code, you are only distributing your the layers on top of the Docker. Okay, let's move on. Now let's see what is a Docker Compose. Now, if you want to create a set of Docker services, you can actually use a feature called Docker Compose, which we are actually going to use for the demo purpose, where you can actually handle multiple services in a single file. So you can see it's a YAML file, which actually composes the definition of multiple services. And everything is in an internal network. And only the exposed ports will be accessible by the host. Now, most of you might be wondering like, okay, this guy is talking about Docker for a while. How does it actually look like in real life, right? So we will be there soon. So let's see like what we have planned for the demo today. So we are going to use Docker to set up a Selenium. Now, Selenium is a third-party Selenium Grid package. So that means like this is actually available as a Docker image itself. And it gives you a Selenium Grid with additional functionality such as a basic UI and inbuilt browsers and web drivers. So if you're setting on your Selenium Grid separately, you need to make sure like you have the required browsers installed, you have the required web drivers downloaded and set it in the path. And basically there is no option of recording the videos unless you code it. Now Selenium offers all the options out of the box. Now Selenium has a dependency. That means like Selenium cannot just run out on of its own. It has a dependency on a Selenium image as well. Now let's see. These are the two images which are required for the Selenium. And as you have seen from the demo by Sam, you need the port 4444, that is the default Selenium Grid, to be accessible. Okay, now let's get practical here. So this is a web page for the Selenium. So this can be shared offline in the YouTube channel. So don't worry about it. So here you can come here to find how to use it and basically the Docker features. So let's see if anything is running on my 4444 port. You can see nothing is running. Now let's go back to our IDE. So you can see there is a file which I've created called docker-compose.yml. So when it goes to a production level scenarios where it's like it depends on which of the earlier services defined. So this defines the order of execution. Now we have mentioned the images. This image name is actually available in the Selenium site, which I've shown earlier. Now you have a container name. This can also be any user-defined name. Host name is also user-defined. And this is a terminal, which I believe is not really necessary for this session. Now let's go to the volume session. So I mentioned like the Selenium offers the video recording as well. Now video recording is actually done in this particular folder, which is inside the Docker, which is not accessible for you. So the volume tag is actually to associate the Docker with the host file system. That means any files created in this folder will be available in this host file system. And finally, we have the ports. So we said like all the Docker services are running inside the Docker container and will not be exposed to the host unless we explicitly specify. So here the ports tag actually says which host port should be connected with the Docker port. And finally, the Selenium start command, which is almost same as your Selenium Grid command. So that is like start and the associate parameters. What is the screen width, screen height, the time zone, and whether you need to do the video recording or not. Now let's see how simple it is to start up a Docker file. So the command is just docker-compose. That is the command. Up, that means to bring up the Docker image. And you can see -d to run it in detached mode. So if you don't specify the -d, that means like your command is actually running in the foreground, and soon as you close this terminal, it will be terminated. Now, if you run in -d, that means like even if you close the terminal, it will be running as a service. So let's give it a spin. That's it. It's done. Now, if you're doing it for the first time, you may find that additional files are being downloaded. Since it has been run initially in my system, you can find, okay, it's not taking much time. But for you, it might take additional time. Don't worry about it. Now, let's see if the Selenium Grid is up or not. So we are going to the same port. And let's see the Selenium Grid console first. Yes, it is up. And you can see there's already an inbuilt Chrome and Firefox available. And if you see in my system, I don't have much browsers available apart from Chrome or Safari, since it is a Mac. And now you can see the dashboard of Selenium. This is the another feature. So if you run any Selenium on this grid or the Selenium grid, you can find your recordings here. So since we have additional things, I would skip it for now and move on to the next topics. So I'll just give you a breathing space and see if there are any additional questions in the chat for now.
Shan, we are handling the questions in the chat meantime. Yeah, you may please proceed.
Thank you, John. Okay. Now let's go to the next topic of our session, that is GitLab. Now we have already seen Jenkins, and most of you are already familiar with Jenkins. And you might be wondering, why another CI/CD tool? What's wrong with Jenkins? We are happy with it. So why GitLab? So let's bring it to you. So we are already familiar with most of the Agile concepts, the Scrum concepts and all. Now what is next? So most of our industries are going into a continuous integration and continuous delivery as part of Agile, and which is more with the DevOps concept. That means your deployment as well. So GitLab offers for such operations a feasible solution. So GitLab is not just your CI/CD. It is a code repository plus CI/CD. That means if you are using a GitLab, you can say goodbye to your own version control tools like GitHub or SVN. It has its own code repository. And again, it's not explicit. Of course, you can use GitLab as your just CI/CD alone. Second thing, yeah, like Jenkins, it also has a free or community edition. But of course, if you have money and if you are going for a highly production level, you have a paid version as well. Now let's see another unique feature of GitLab, that is free shared runners. Now, what are shared runners, or basically what are runners? So runners are basically the machines which is actually running your code. So in Jenkins, you guys will be hosting it locally, or you will be have a centralized server. But again, you will be connecting the nodes to the Jenkins so that it will be running. So that might be your local machine itself. But GitLab is a modern era CI/CD, which is like, it actually offers you cloud-based execution. That means like you can just create a GitLab account and make your code run in the cloud. That means like you don't have to worry about your physical machines no longer. Then again, you have an option of self-hosted or SaaS or software as a service. So that means like either you can install GitLab if you want in your local machine and run it as you do with Jenkins. But if you want to go more agile, you can always use the SaaS mode. That means the web portal itself. And finally, we have the Docker integration. So if you want to use the shared runners, that means like you are already know like those are the independent machines, and that will never be having our dependencies. So you need to use the Docker feature here to make sure your dependencies are met before you run your code. And let's see the typical GitLab workflow. Now this is not just specific to automation. It's an overall picture. So every project starts with a branch in a version control where the developer will actually push their changes. So after that, our automation engineers will also push their changes of the Selenium code or any other additional automation codes. Now, as soon as it is merged, we are entering the continuous integration phase. So continuous integration in a nutshell, make sure like any code changes is tested, deployed properly, and make sure any code in the version control is stable or any bugs are identified in the earlier stage. Now, once the continuous integration does the build, deploy, and test stages in a nutshell, and it deploys something called as a review app or a review environment. That means any piece of code you deploy merged into the repository will give you an environment for review. So for example, for those who are familiar with the user story, once a user story is committed, you will see a separate isolated environment where you can test that feature alone. Now, once that feature is tested, bug fixed, and actually reviewed and approved by your product owners, it will be merged with the actual code or the existing code. Now, once it is approved, that means it is actually production ready. So there again goes your continuous deployment on your main branch, where actually you go through the same cycle, that is build, test, and deploy. But this time it will be on a production environment. I hope it's clear. Now let's get practical over here and see how GitLab actually works. So it is just gitlab.com, and you can register yourself for free. And you can create a new project. So for the time being, I'm just going with the existing project. But here you have the option of creating a new project. So you can create a blank project. I'm not going into templates at the moment, but you can always import your project from any of the supported clients. So if you already have a code repository in your GitHub, you can actually import it. And it will be merged, created a new repository in the GitLab. Now you have an option for external repo. That means like if you don't want GitLab to use as a version control, and if you already have your own version control in GitHub, you can actually connect GitLab to that repository. So only the CI/CD will be used. Now let's go back to our project. So here is your details page, and under the repository, you can find your similar interface that is of a GitHub repository. Now for this demo purpose, I have created a new branch, which you can see as an additional file called GitLab-CI.yml. You can clone it directly as you do with GitHub. But if you are using an IDEA or IntelliJ IDEA, you have an option to directly clone it in the IDE itself. So let's explore how it looks like, the GitLabs-CI.yml. So this is the heart and soul of a GitLab project. You don't have any fancy UIs or plugins like Jenkins. This is what you have for GitLab. So you might have seen some resemblance to the Docker file, which we have seen a little bit earlier. This is because we are going to use the GitLab execution mode of Docker. Now, if you just want to run as you have run with Jenkins, you can use the shell mode. But that makes it mandatory for you to make sure all the operating system or browser dependencies are handled by yourself. And you cannot use the shared runners, of course. So you can see I have started with something called as an image. Now this is the Docker image I'll be using. Now I think everybody might be confused, like, okay, how do I find a proper Docker image for my requirement? So you can go to the Docker hub and you can search here with your requirements. So you can see the Maven Chrome, which I'm using here, and you can see what does that image include. That includes the JDK, Maven, Chrome, and the Chrome driver. So this is all we need to run our GitLab in the shared runner. That means like any independent machine. Now we have the stages. That is a build, deploy, and test. Now in the production scenario, build is where your actual application is built, and deploy is where the same is deployed to the specific environments. And test can be multiple. So in this case, we are only targeting the Selenium test. But in the production, you might be having multiple tests like your unit test, your automation test, and finally your performance test, of course. And you have additional variables like which is the repository you want to use. And this cache again is specific to the Maven. But let's go into the main core, that is the stages. So whatever the tags you stage here, you need the definition here. So it's basically the function call to here. So if you look at the build one, this particular node name can be anything. This is not is linked, but this command that may says stage colon build, this should be same as what you define in the stages. Now you can see build, I just said like Maven compile and echo message. Deployment, there's nothing specific, so I just mentioned deployed. And you have the test stage where you are actually stating which command to trigger your automation test. It is Maven clean install. And finally, if you need to see your JUnit reports, you have the option of saving it as an artifact, which says which JUnit report to be exported. Now, one thing to note here is like when you are running in a GitLab, it is actually running in a headless mode. That means like it's not like your Windows where you can see the browser popping up and running. So either you can choose for running it in a headless mode, or you can use any services like a Selenium Grid or a browser stack or any cloud-based services. So let's just have a quick peek into like how we made it headless. So you can see I'm passing it a Chrome option and I'm setting like set headless as true. And I'm just passing it as to where you are initializing the Chrome driver. So in this area, I'm not going in depth of what a Selenium test and all. I hope everybody is familiar as of now with the basic Cucumber and everything. So this is just to demonstrate how a GitLab triggers it. Now, to trigger a GitLab pipeline, or what we say as a CI/CD, you need to make any changes to the repository. So let's see if we have any changes. So you can see there is not much changes. So let's make a change. Let's put an exclamation mark here because we just want to change it. So you can see now we have a file which has a change. So what I will do is like just push it. So before that, let's go into the GitLab and see if anything is already running. So if you go to the GitLab and goes into the CI/CD pipelines, you can see all the jobs here. So you can see the last one was run 15 hours ago. So nothing is running at the moment. So let's commit and push. And so let's go to the repository here and see if it's running. Yes, it's run. So as you can see, you haven't touched the GitLab UI at all to trigger your execution. You just committed your code. Now, if you go in depth into the pipeline, you can see the 3 stages which you have defined in your YAML file. And those are called jobs here. Now, if you want to see what is happening in each of them, you can actually click on the nodes and you can see the console logs here. So as you can see, it starts with the Docker executor with the image we have mentioned in the YAML file. And it will run all the commands one after the another. So you can see finally it says job is succeeded. Now, if you go back to the pipeline, you can see the tick mark on that node completed. Now let's see what is happening in the deployment where we don't have much things. Now, one thing more to note here is like every job is an independent process. So every time the GitLab will be setting up the Docker environment separately. So this might cause an additional delay, but the delay is worth it because it makes your deployment independent. Okay, that is also done. Now let's go back to the main stage where your test is actually being run. So it's again starts with the Docker image. So if you want to actually use your local system, you have a specified runners which you can actually configure. So that makes it easier for you to manage the dependencies, or if you don't want to wait for the shared runners to be available. So this is just additional information. So you can see our test is going to start because we have started the command maven clean install. So you can see the familiar screens that is running your scenario. You can see the Chrome driver is started. And it's done. Now let's go to the overall pipeline. You can see all the stages has been done. Now, if you go into the test, you can see the jobs here, which has a report on it. So only for the test job, we have exported the artifact. So you can see the report here. And that concludes our session for the GitLab. Now we have gone through so many stages, and let's, as a final step, let's see like where we actually stand in the big picture. So this might not resemble your everybody's how each organization works, but this is like in a nutshell how a agile DevOps mechanism works. So it starts with basically a user stories or a business requirements, which is actually fed into a sprint where the actual work happens. So you will be having developers who might be writing the actual code and the unit test for them. Then you have your automation test, which simultaneously are checked into a common repository. Then here you have your CI/CD pipeline where it is actually built, deployed, and basically tested. So guys, we just see in the scope of like around 2 hours, we have actually been through the almost touched every part of it. And thank you for your patience. And I'll just now move to John for his closing remarks. Thank you. John,
Thank you, Shan, and thank you, gentlemen, for your wonderful sessions. So before moving into the Q&A, we can just sum it up. So we started our journey by automating a basic web page with Selenium Java in a beginner level. Then we automated the same script with Cucumber feature file. After that, we showed a real-time BDD framework in an intermediate level. Then we showed how an automation test engineer manage their code or scripts using Git repository. Beyond that, we implemented CI/CD by incorporating Jenkins and GitLab. Finally, we set up an independent automation test environment. We even introduced Docker to avoid configuration and environment dependency from an expert level. So in this journey of different stages as well as different levels of automation, we travel through all the icons which we displayed in our welcome screen. I'm sure those icons will be there in your mind forever. Again, I'm sure you might miss certain elements in our session. So please feel free to watch our recorded session in our YouTube channel, Obscura Zone. So even latecomers can also watch the recorded session in our YouTube channel. So happy testing, happy learning, which never ends. So now it's the time for our Q&A. So we are all waiting for your questions. So please raise your hand and we can just take your questions.
Okay. I see a few questions here. So I see a question from Viju that is like, what is the difference between a GitHub and a Docker? So GitHub is basically your code repository where you actually push in your code, while Docker is basically your dependency resolution or a packaging tool. Okay, I see one more question from Shijon. Does Jenkins and GitLab both run the same job? Okay, I'll answer you in a different way. So yes, GitLab can sorry. So your GitLab can be an alternative for Jenkins, but it's not necessary always that Jenkins can substitute for a GitLab. Basically, if you are using the GitLab's version control, so you can see like say like a GitLab is Jenkins plus version control. I hope I answered your question. Yes, Docker is open source. You can use it for free. And I wouldn't really say it's an open source, but yeah, of course you can use it.
So Shanu, there was a question: how many Docker containers can be done in our local machine?
It depends on your system configuration and the type of images you're using. So that means like if you are using a basic image like a CentOS, which is basically a very small image, you can run. And if you are having like a, let's say, a 3 gigahertz processor and a 8 GB RAM, I hope you will be able to spin up like a 3 to 4 easily. Okay, I see one more question from Ashin. Do we really need Docker if we use Selenium Grid? No, of course not. You can use the method which Sam mentioned. You can download the jar files and run it in your local. Okay, Jira is not for automation. So it's basically a project management tool. But of course, your automation tools can be integrated with Jira to provide the reports. Yes, I see. Docker to Docker communication. Yes, Docker to Docker communication is possible. So when you are launching a Docker, multiple Docker services with one YAML file, you are actually creating a default internal network, which all the Docker containers inside can communicate.
There was another question. Are you going to?
Sorry, Manu, I cannot hear you.
The question was, are we going to share any materials like code or commands used as part of this session?
Yeah, we can. We will be sharing our GitHub repository for those who are interested. You can contact us. Yes, Balakrishna. You can use Docker to run any test. So Docker is like a generic framework. You can say like a Java. Can you use Java to write test? Yes. Can you use Java to develop something new? Yes. So same way, Docker is a generic platform where you can use it to distribute anything. Okay.
So team, maybe you can unmute your mic and ask the questions. Don't hesitate to type. Yeah, you can ask the questions.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
The example which you have shown, the image which you have downloaded from the Docker repo. So, will it run the Selenium? So, where you are downloading the Selenium dependencies, whatever the Maven image you have downloaded, will that can I run the Selenium test case with that image alone? Like the image you have shown in the demo.
So your Selenium dependencies are not met by the Docker. It is met by your Maven file. That is a pom.xml. So when you are downloading your Docker image, you are actually setting up the platform only. So that is means you are actually working on your. So if you remember the earlier slides where I've shown the dependencies, you have the library dependencies, your browser dependencies, your other application or operating system dependency. So libraries are handled by your build manager, and the remaining are managed by the Docker. Did I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Now we have some questions in the chat box.
Okay, let's see where we can start. A single Docker can hold any number of browser execution. No, you cannot. So you can imagine a single Docker container as a machine. Can one machine handle all your browser execution? The answer is, of course, no. There is a limit. So you can spin up multiple Docker containers, and the Docker container can be hosted on multiple machines, and it can talk to each other. And I can extend this answer to answer the another question, that is like, can we manage multiple machines in different geographical zones located globally using Selenium Grid? Yes, you can. Only requirement is like all the systems should have a network to communicate within each other. So you will be having a centralized hub, and your nodes can be placed anywhere in the world, and each node will be connecting to the hub.
Hello, this is Hashin. I have a question. Like I usually hear the Docker related to AWS. So is the AWS also, can we do our Selenium code or automated code deployed in AWS? How do that work actually?
Okay, so you asked actually a really wide question, but let me see like how I can answer you. So Docker is not only related to AWS, it is related to all kinds of deployment. Okay, so AWS, what it offers is basically a platform to deploy or manage our infrastructure. So when you want to deploy it on a cloud where it's basically a bare bones, you use Docker to deploy it. Now, if if the question is like if you can run the Selenium script using Docker on AWS, yes, you can. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
I see one more question from Shijon. Does a Docker acts as a hub and remaining Docker acts as nodes? Okay, no, this is not really true in all the aspects. You can have individual nodes as well. Now, Docker hub itself is a different, it's like more like a repository, but yeah, Docker is like a platform. It's not like a hub and nodes. Okay, another question, can we use Selenium to test APIs? I wouldn't recommend it so, because Selenium is mainly meant for the browser-based automation. If you want to test APIs, you have additional better tools, which like Postman or Rest Assured, which you can use.
So I have a different question. Like I'm currently working in an agile kind of model. So what I see is that with the agility comes the readiness to change. So I'm expecting so much of changes that is like every week releases, I'm expecting so much of changes. So whatever I do automate, I kind of feel that goes as very like. So do you find the similar thing, or what's the proper approach to such a environment or process?
Okay. So the answer to this would be like, if you are really into Agile, how closely you are working with the developers. Now, if you are really working closely with the developers and the mainly, I would say, front-enders for the Selenium test, you will already know what are the changes that is going to come. And you won't have to complain about your automation tests breaking because of the application change or let's say any locator change, because you will already be knowing about it from the developers, what the changes are you are going to expect. And that is the only way how we can mitigate this. Am I clear?
Yes. So it is recommended to do automation with the development itself, or is it like can we wait up to the time that our system becomes some stable, like kind
No.
of stable?
So that is like a, I would say like a older methodology or a thought process which says like you should do automation only for a stable product. No. So automation is what actually enabling the continuous integration and testing. So it's not really necessary to make it a stable or wait for the stable application to become stable before you start automation. You may have to scrap away the automation after like a multiple sprints, but it's still worth the effort because of you are enabling the continuous testing.
Just to add on to that point, so many companies follow their own automation strategies. So basically, the common industry standard is Agile will have shift to left approach. So where right from the beginning, when the development starts, you need to plan for your automation. So if you're planning to bring automation at a later point, it will be a difficult task for you. So it's highly recommended to start automation right from the beginning, and you need to have a good collaboration with the team. And the development team should also support automation. That is how testing is purely done in Agile.
Thank you.
So, do we have questions in the chat box? Can we check?
Okay, I think I see a few questions. So let's see from the bottom one. Why do I need Docker image to run my pipeline in Git? Okay, you mean GitLab. Does not GitLab have any environment to execute? So no. So as I mentioned, Docker is one of the executors supported by GitLab. You have additional executors such as Kubernetes or your shell executor, which is actually similar to your Jenkins. Now, when you say environment to execute, it depends like if you are setting up your own environment. So you can use a specified runner set up in your GitLab to set your local machine or your machine provided by your company to the GitLab. But if you want to use a shared runner, it is always recommended to use any Docker or any other virtualization service. I hope I answered your question, Amar. Next question I see. Okay, may I know the day-to-day activity of a automation tester in Agile approach? Well, it again goes with the same of your what kind of Agile methodology you are using, a Scrum or a Kanban or anything. But ideally, I would say like a automation tester goes with the same as of your manual tester starts, like analyze the requirements, find the dependencies, and then build your automation code. And yeah, basically it might be a new code or a maintenance due to a change. And at the end of the day, it's all comes to the maintaining the quality of the deliverable.
Do you have any more questions?
John, I think we can wrap up. There are no more questions.
Okay. So can we wind up? So thank you, Praditani team, especially Smita and Naushad for this platform with this wonderful crowd who were so patient to say all the time close to 3 hours. The time we found interesting was the Q&A session. So for any continuous session, please feel free to contact Team Praditani. Meantime, you can find the recorded session in our YouTube channel, Obscura Zone, and other Q&A and other Agile or QA related technical videos. And even we are maintaining the videos related to QA interviews. So finally, a big thank you from Team Obscura Zone. Have a great day. Happy weekend. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Praditani team.
Thank you, Praditani.